Hi there. We're looking at surds and particularly simplifying them. Now, up until this point, you may well have spent your time working out what the square root of 8 is. So if you get an answer where you have to square root something and the answer turns out to be the square root of whatever 8 is, you may have put it into your calculator and then rounded your answer. What we're going to look at now is, rather than rounding your answer and giving an inaccurate answer, leaving your answer as accurate as possible by writing it as a surd. Now, to get started, we're going to have a look at root 8. So the principle of simplifying surds is that you want to find two factors of the number inside the square root, and where one of them is a square number. So for the square root of 8, well, the factors of 8, there's 1 and 8, and there's 2 and 4. And 1 is a square number, so we could use 1 and 8. 4 is a square number, so we could use 2 and 4. I'm going to use 4. And hopefully you'll see why soon. So I've written 8 as 4 times 2. Now we can write it like that as well. And the reason we write it like that, and I put my square number first, is that I know that the square root of 4 is 2. So I can write this as 2 root 2. So root 8 has been simplified to 2 root 2 by finding a square number. The reason I didn't use 1 and 8 is that I won't actually change anything, because yes, 1 is a square number, but it's end up with root 8 again, so nothing would actually have changed. So that's me simplifying root 8, and we've got 2 root 2. That means 2 times root 2. Now that doesn't seem like it's really entirely relevant. It is very useful when you get into A level, but we're going to have a look at how we can apply it to these next two examples. So we've already looked at root 8 and we know that that's 2 root 2. We're now going to have a look at the square root of 50. So again, we want to find two factors of 50 where one of them is a square number. So there's 1 and 50, 2 and 25. So that sounds promising because we've got 25 and root 2. So that will give us 2 root 2, and that's our root 8. And then the square root of 25 is 5. So we end up with 2 root 2 plus 5 root 2. Now you'll see over here I say treat it like algebra. So if this is 2a plus 5a, then you quite happily put 7a. And therefore we can quite happily put 7 root 2. And that's a simplified version of that, in the same way that root 8 simplified to 2 root 2. Okay, we're going to continue with that. So we know that root 8 plus root 50 can be simplified to 7 root 2. Now for root 32, again we want to find two factors where one of them is a square number. So we've got 1 and 32, 2 and 16. So let's start with that. You can see why I want to choose 2. It's nice to have the same square root in each of our answers. So we've got root 16 times root 2. It means I've got 7 root 2 over, the square root of 16 is 4. So 4 root 2. Now in this scenario, I've got 7 root 2 and 4 root 2. Root 2 over root 2 is 1. So that will actually simplify to 7 over 4. If you prefer mixed numbers, 1 and 3/4. Now hopefully you can start to see the benefit that we started off with this and we've ended up with that, and you can appreciate in maths it's a lot easier to work with this than it was with what we started with. So that's why we manipulate surds, try and simplify them, because it can make our lives a bit easier. I've got a little problem at the bottom here to try and apply it to. So we've got a little right angle triangle with sides of 3 and 6, and we're trying to find the longest side there. So if we apply Pythagoras, you know that if we take the two shorter sides and square them, add them together, that should give us the longer sides squared. So whatever the question mark is, let's be a bit more mathematical and call it x. So that's 9 and 36. So we end up with 45 equals whatever the longest side is squared. So x will be the square root of 45. Now, rather than work that out and simplify my round my answer, I'm going to simplify that surd. So looking for two numbers, a pair of factors of 45, where one of them is a square number. Hopefully you've had to think about that, and you come up with 9 and 5. The square root of 9 is 3. And it means we can leave our answer to this question in a more accurate way, and if we need to use that answer in a further part of a question, we haven't lost any accuracy. So there's how we can apply it to a slightly more practical problem. So that's the beginnings of surds and just simplifying surds.